bevor wir das hier an der... Ja. PK weg ist, dann
Já si postavím tady před vás, jo.
Ja, aber näher kommt man nicht ran. Wir können auch aufschauen. Se budou pohybovat.
Nebo já tady. Ich glaube, Stativ brauchen wir nicht. Nee, wird ausland.
Okay, wir kommen raus.
They are in the room.
They are in the room.
They must come, but in Brussels today they also nominate the new General Secretary. Probably they are given congratulations, but it's finished.
to začalo být takový nějaký moc ostrý.
Řekni něco, ty máš řekni něco. Ne, takový jelen nebo
Right, Simos? Back in the center.
Teď se zeptám. Už jdou.
Můžu vás poprosit?
Já půjdu.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's press conference following today's European Council. Now, we have journalists joining us remotely, but today we'll actually only be taking questions from journalists present in the room. Without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to the President of the European Council, Mr. Charles МИШЕЛЬ.
Merci. Good morning, everyone. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à chacune.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I should like warmly to thank the Prime Minister, Petr FIALA, for the warm hospitality and perfect organisation over these last 2 days. These are important days for the European Union and the European continent. I'd like to say a few words about yesterday's meeting, a historic meeting, because for the first time, 44 countries of the European continent sharing the same ambition to work together towards prosperity and stability met. This is the first time. Over dinner yesterday evening, it was decided that the next meetings would be in Moldova, Spain and the UK. And this is mission accomplished. We listened to each other. We identified areas of agreement in connection with the challenges we face. We want to understand each other better so as to converge and cooperate operationally. all countries were there on an equal footing. The idea is not to institutionalize these events, but to remain flexible so that we are as effective as possible. So this was a demonstration of unity at a time when the European continent and the world in general need this unity.
Meeting, and we had the occasion again to listen to the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, had the occasion to address all of us and to share with us the priorities of Ukraine. This is the occasion for us to reiterate our full support for Ukraine. This is an aggression, this is an unacceptable war, and we are determined to mobilize all possible tools and means in order to support Ukraine, with financial means, with military support, with humanitarian support, and of course with political support. At the same time, you know that we took decisions in order to strengthen the sanctions against Russia, because we think that we need to put pressure against the Kremlin, but also the occasion today and yesterday to mention the importance to reach out to third countries in order to counter the Russian narrative. We know that this war, decided by Russia, has huge consequences not only for the European continent but also for the world. The food security crisis and the energy crisis. And you know that we are determined to support our partners across the world when it comes to the food security crisis. But we had also the occasion today, this is the third point I would like to mention, to address the energy crisis, the energy situation, and the economic and social consequences of that crisis. On a aussi eu l'occasion aujourd'hui.
We also had an opportunity today, at this informal meeting of the European Council, we had an opportunity to discuss the energy situation, a fundamental issue. Russia has launched a war against the Ukrainian people. They're fighting courageously for the values which we share and for their own future and the future of the European project. There's no doubt that Russia has weaponized oil and gas. It's launched a missile against our continent, so to speak. Now we need to act in the following areas. They're indispensable. First, we need to reduce consumption and demand. Initial decisions have been taken. That work's been done by the Commission, and under the Czech presidency, we shall seek to reduce consumption. This is one lever which we have. Each of us has this lever, so that we rise to the challenge together. Secondly, there's security of supply. For several months now, we've worked to ensure that stocks are as full as possible. That's important. Before the summer, we said that we needed to organize public procurement of energy supplies. We came back to the subject today, and there is increasing support for this idea. The idea would be to fill the stocks when that becomes necessary again. And its roadmap, the Commission has made proposals on the subject. And there's a third aspect, prices. This is a painful impact for families, for households, potentially for companies too, and this has an economic impact. Today, I want to assert that there is a shared determination of European leaders to be mobilized. Our common ambition is to reduce energy prices. We want to work with the Council and European Union to ensure that we move towards the next European Council and make progress on the measures which are necessary. So that's what I wanted to share with you. One last point. This decision was formalized by the European Council a few moments ago. The Secretary General post has been vacant since Jeppe's departure for the Danish civil service. I made a proposal. Thérèse Blanchet, the current head of the legal service is to be the next Secretary General. Colleagues agreed, and this will be formalized next week by Coreper. Thank you.
Michelle, I now pass the floor to President von der Leyen.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank our host, dear Prime Minister, dear Petr, for the outstanding reception and the warmth with which we have been welcomed here in this fantastic environment. These were two very impressive days, and we will keep them in best memory. So many, many thanks for that to the presidency. We had, of course, yesterday the European political community for the very first time. I think the composition was telling. There were 44 countries united, discussing the challenges of today, and it showed how much Russia is isolated by now, but it also showed how strong the support for Ukraine is. The Prime Minister was present. President Zelensky joined us via video conference, and it was an important message and signal to show that the European countries are determined to defend the rule of law, the international right, the charter that we all hold so dear. Of course, we had today also then the discussion on Ukraine and how we can support Ukraine as long as it takes. I'm very encouraged that we managed yesterday to close the latest rounds of hard-biting sanctions against Russia in record time. Once again, we've moved fast and we have moved with force. We've made progress on the oil price cap. With our enhanced export ban, we continue to undermine Putin's ability to wage war in Ukraine. And with our widened import ban, we deprive him further of important revenues. This shows Putin that the European Union is determined to continue making him pay for his war of aggression. And in parallel, we continue to stand firmly with Ukraine. Team Europe, that is the EU and the Member States, is Ukraine's most important supporter alongside the United States. We are providing by now, since the beginning of the war, 19 billion euros for Ukraine. This is without counting military assistance. And this includes that a further 2 billion euros in macrofinancial assistance will be released in the coming days. Of course, we will not only have to look at the immediate relief with financial support, but also at the midterm, the reconstruction. Supporting Ukraine in this endeavor is the purpose of a joint conference that the Commission and the G7 presidency will hold at the end of this month in Berlin. It was very good to hear the other leaders on this very important issue on reconstruction of Ukraine. What is already clear is that we will have to identify new financing sources because this is a massive amount that will be needed. And we will have to establish a very structured approach to ensure predictability for the financing, transparency on how it's going to be done, and of course, sustainability of funding for Ukraine. Then the second point we've been discussing was energy. Today, 7 months into the war that Russia has unleashed against Ukraine, we are much better prepared for the winter than it was the case before. Just to give you a figure, at the beginning of the war, the overall imported gas, 41% was Russian gas. Today we are down to 7.5%. And that shows how much we have progressed in diversifying away from Russia, getting rid of our dependency from Russian fossil fuels and turning towards more reliable supplier. Our storages are filled by 90% by now. This is, compared to last year, same time, 15% more. So we are in a very good state where that is concerned. And therefore, the discussion focused on the question of the high gas prices overall and the high electricity prices. As you know, I have sent a letter to detail out a roadmap, how to approach these topics. So the question of negotiating a corridor for decent prices with our reliable suppliers, or, for example, looking at how to limit prices in the gas market overall, and to look at how to limit the influence of gas in the price formation of electricity. All these topics have been discussed with the view that within the roadmap, more detailed proposals will come from the Commission for the next weeks ahead of us. One thing is very clear. There's a broad support that next spring, at the end of the winter, when our storages will be depleted, it is of paramount importance that we have a joint procurement of gas so that we avoid to outbid each other, but that we have a collective bargaining power and that we put that in place. All these views on the gas market, the electricity prices, are so important because we have to keep our single market together and we have to avoid fragmentation. I emphasize once again how crucial that is, and this is an opinion that was widely shared. Time and again, the single market has proven to be our single best asset in times of crisis. Therefore, we need to preserve it. It's of paramount importance that we have a level playing field and that we avoid fragmentation and distortion. On the contrary, we have to make possible that there are investments. We have to double down on investments in homegrown renewables, not only for the climate, but also because the transition to the clean energy is the best way to gain independence and to have security of energy supply. This is why we will be looking at additional funding to be channeled through Repower EU. We need all countries to have the necessary resources to invest in clean energy. Finally, last but not least, a word on the protection of critical infrastructure. What happened with Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 is clearly the type of threats we will have to get used to, but more importantly, be prepared for. And as you know, the Commission presented a 5-point plan on preparedness, on stress testing, on response, on international coordination, and on information exchange. Our work starts now. It is very good that we have already legislation in place. During the French presidency it was developed. So we are anticipating now the entry into force of these new EU rules on the resilience of critical entities and cybersecurity, and thus strengthening our critical infrastructure. Of course, we will also be reaching out to international partners, first and foremost NATO. The resilience of critical infrastructure is bound to become a crucial aspect of our EU-NATO cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President. And now the floor to Prime Minister FIALA.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that we followed up on yesterday's successful meetings, first meeting of EPC, and we would discuss energy and Russian war in Ukraine and its influence on the European Union in detail. I welcome the consensus of a training mission of Ukraine troops in the EU. It's an important step which will help Ukraine to sustain war. I am glad that the ambassadors of the EU approved another sanction package. The most important element is the cap of Russian oil, which is transported in tankers. Europe has become too dependent on Russian energy, and Russia uses energy resources as a weapon. We must stop this dependence to be sovereign. I am glad that we openly discussed the proposal of the President of the European Commission to decouple the price of gas from the price of electricity. We also talked about the release of additional ETS allowances from the Market Stability Reserve in order to reduce their price, and of course other possible measures. Czech Presidency will work hard together with the Commission on the further steps in discussed topics, especially solution of high energy prices. It's very important. We will organize as many meetings of the Council of Ministers as necessary. Dámy a pánové,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad that after the successful summit yesterday of the European political community, I'm very glad that we managed to hold this informal summit of the 27. I've received feedback from foreign friends and colleagues. They said that this was successful, that there would be concrete results. I'd like to thank all those who helped in the organization. I'd like to thank all the colleagues who accepted my invitation, in particular Charles and Ursula. So we can really speak of a positive outcome. Both days, I'm not exaggerating, I think, were an advertisement for the Czech Republic, showing that we have the confidence of our partners. Today, at the informal summit, we focused on Ukraine and the energy situation in Europe, following the Russian aggression against Ukraine. There's a very strong influence of that. So we've had a few weeks of the Czech presidency. During this time, we've agreed on the training mission for Ukrainian military and a further sanction package. Russia is the aggressor, and both the formats of our meetings showed our unity in support of Ukraine, and we shall continue to ensure that Ukraine receives support, including the packages, the financing packages which have been adopted. I can echo what the two previous speakers have said. We need to reduce our dependence on Russian energy. We agreed on the fundamental points, and we welcome the proposals announced by the Commission. We do need to deal with energy prices, electricity and gas prices. We need to reduce prices for all households and firms in the European Union. And we've referred to the ETS allowances to be released from the Market Stability Reserve. That too can have a fundamental influence. Furthermore, we need to find ways of helping large firms, which we haven't been able to support so far from state budgets. Now, we have to comply with state aid rules. We can't have national solutions only. We need European solutions. In all these matters, the Czech presidency will work hard. We shall convene as many ministerial meetings as necessary in the interest of the Czech Republic and the European Union. As has been said, a lot of the things which we talked about today will indeed be formalized in formal councils in Brussels.
I suggest we first take a few questions from the Czech media. I suggest Lukas Matej from Czech TV.
Lukáš Matej, Česká televize, dobrý den.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. You've spoken about the energy crisis. Will the current price support be enough? What signals can be given about further support, and what is the time horizon? When is something likely to be adopted by councils in Brussels? Because time is moving on, and our citizens will want to have solutions as swiftly as possible. I'm referring to caps and the German package, for example. Thank you for that question. This was an informal European Council, so the aim was not to adopt conclusions and practical solutions. Instead, the aim was to have a forum for political discussion which is conducive to solutions being found. I refer to what Charles and Ursula and I have said. This reflects the reality. We're moving towards common solutions. We're all aware of the problems posed by energy prices in the various member states. We're aware of the fact that the winter is drawing near. But what's positive is that member states want European solutions. They don't want to go down the national road, which would be much more expensive. Yes, we'll have the next formal European Council. This will be an important deadline, and we shall work hard with the help of the Commission President. There'll be specific proposals with a view to that formal European Council, which will deal with these proposals. I'd like to be quite clear about how things are done in the European Council. It's the relevant councils which adopt Commission proposals, the Energy Council, for example. The role of the presidency country is to organize this. I think we've done this very well over the last few weeks and months. We convene councils so that councils can reach agreement and achieve results. And what's important here is our cooperation with the European Commission. And I think that the last few weeks have shown that we are able to achieve specific results.
And now, Marek Opapny from Czech News Agency, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to come back to the subject of Ukraine. The leaders of the member states are called upon to provide more finance for Ukraine. And what about negotiations with the Ukrainian government, and what can you say in the light of what Mr. Zelensky told you? Well, thank you for this question. What is important is this. Our informal council today, this isn't surprising, by the way, this was shown also by the European Political Community meeting. What was clear was that it's obvious that we have to support Ukraine. We have to help Ukraine. We can't accept Russian aggression in any way. So in these last few weeks, we were able to adopt further packages of sanctions in reaction to the ever more aggressive policy of Russia. We've managed to agree on the training of Ukrainian soldiers on European soil, and we shall continue in this manner. We had a very earnest discussion about how we can ensure longer-term support. So this is not simply a question of military and humanitarian aid, but this is a question also of financial aid. Because the aim of the European Union is not simply to have a Ukrainian victory in the field. Ukraine has to emerge successfully from the conflict. As regards the Czech Republic and negotiations with the Ukrainian government, well, we talked about this yesterday with the Ukrainian Prime Minister. But yesterday's forum wasn't mainly about this. What I can confirm is this. The Czech government and the Ukrainian government will have discussions involving about 6 members of government. We'll continue our discussions. So we want to commit ourselves to supporting Ukraine. In addition, we want to prepare post-war reconstruction in Ukraine. And that's what we need to discuss more with our Ukrainian partners.
Thank you. I now have a question from Martina Davis from the New York Times.
Thanks very much, Martina Davis, New York Times. A question about something different. My colleagues in New York last night reported President Biden's latest comments regarding Putin's nuclear threats. He warned of the possibility of a nuclear Armageddon. That's a direct quote. He also said that Putin isn't joking when he makes these threats. I wonder if your U.S. counterparts or member state intelligence services have shared specific recent intelligence that points beyond Mr. Putin's public statements, that points to increased risk of a nuclear attack or use of nuclear weapons, tactical or otherwise. Do you share the assessment that he's not joking and we are risking a nuclear Armageddon, or do you consider that language hyperbolic? Thank you.
Thank you, Martina.
We
take the threat and all threats and any escalation seriously. Since the beginning of this aggression, we note that this is aggression committed by a Security Council member which has nuclear weapons. We don't intend to be intimidated. We're highly committed. We want to defend the interests of those who believe in international law and rule-based order. Yes, on several occasions, explicit or implicit threats to use nuclear weapons have been heard. Furthermore, Russia has occupied the biggest nuclear power station in Europe to make it a military base. 500 soldiers, 500 Russian soldiers occupying this nuclear power station. And we fully support the efforts of the United Nations, Rafael Grossi, to stabilize the situation and reduce this threat. Yesterday and today, it was clear that there was very strong determination to stick to two pillars: support for Ukraine, first of all, and results, tangible results have already been achieved. The second pillar is firmness in our condemnation of Russia, expressed through sanctions, inter alia. We're not going to be intimidated. We'll keep our cool, and every time we'll denounce the irresponsible nature of such threats.
Madam President, do you wish to add anything? No.
Well, indeed, we're taking the threats of President Putin serious, as we take any of his quotes serious. And at the same time, as with any of his quotes, we're not being blackmailed by what he says. We have a very clear stance on how we want to proceed.
Thank you. And one last question, John Anger from Bloomberg.
Thank you. John Anger from Bloomberg. To President Michel and von der Leyen. Coming into this meeting, there didn't really seem to be a clear view on what exactly member states wanted when it came to a gas price cap. Do you now have clarity on what it is exactly they are converging on, which gas price caps are still on the table, and which other things like demand reduction might have to be implemented? And President von der Leyen, you mentioned your letter and the call for new funds. Was that discussed today, and would you like to see more borrowing to fund some of the energy measures that the Commission plans on taking? Thank you.
The experience shows that in the decision-making process on the EU side, it is very useful to have such a meeting, an informal meeting, without the political pressure of written conclusions, but with the occasion to listen to each other and to try to understand better what are the different opinions, what are the different sensitivities. And I would like to share with you our experience. Today, we listened to the different opinions, priorities expressed, and we felt that there is a real feeling of a need for a pragmatic approach. It means that there is a roadmap proposed by the Commission. It was extremely helpful to have a framework. I repeat that we had the occasion to discuss 3 points, in fact. The demand, how we can reduce the consumption, and we can see only in a few weeks that we are able to mobilize our people, to mobilize our businesses, because we have demonstrated only in a few weeks or months that we are able to be responsible and to show responsibilities in that field, point 1. Point 2, the supply. I would like to come back to the question. For instance, I had the occasion a few weeks ago to travel to Algeria, Qatar, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia. It means that we need to engage with third countries, countries that can be reliable partners in the future for our energy resources. And I put that point in link with the common purchase platform, which is an idea that we've already discussed a few months ago, and we feel that there is a growing support. I'm more concrete, I repeat again, is for instance, to fill the stocks in the future, it could be a powerful tool in order to have an impact for our supply, but also for the third element, the price. The price, you know, then there are some words more sensitive from an ideological point of view, but today it was extremely valuable to have this occasion to understand that there is a common will for a common European approach. All of us understand that it's not possible to have 27 national initiatives and that with that approach we would overcome the challenges and the difficulties. We understand that we need a strong EU coordination, and you understood that there is a very strong role played not only by the Commission, but also by the rotating presidency. And again, I commend the leadership of the Czech presidency, because we have seen the recent weeks and months an absolute determination to address those challenges and to make sure that this is possible to take decisions together. The next European Council will be extremely important, but not only the next European Council, also the Council of Ministers. It has been said, and I repeat, there is an important role that needs to be played, and also at the level of the Council of the EU.
So we have very clear objectives, and these objectives have been laid down in the roadmap letter. This we have discussed. First of all, it is to coordinate the procurement, because it needs a common trust and transparency about the offers of gas that we will then purchase together in order to make sure that we do not outbid ourselves on the global market. The second objective is to tame the gas prices. This is done in several ways. You can have a negotiated corridor with reliable suppliers. This work has already started with Norwegian companies. You can, in a second approach, and this is important, look at how you limit the gas price so that we take out the peaks and the speculation out of the gas price at the TTF level. Very important point that we discussed. And then you can have a third look at the gas prices, how you partially decouple the influence of the gas price in the formation of the electricity price. This might be the first step for a far-reaching market reform that we are envisaging, but only towards the beginning of next year, because this is a very complex endeavor. These is the goals in the gas price market. Looking at the financing, first of all, it's important that now REPower gets the final agreement of Council and European Parliament. REPower EU has all what is necessary in governance to make it possible to invest in critical infrastructure like pipelines, interconnectors, and renewables, but also to invest in businesses and households, insulating houses or heat pumps and other technologies that are necessary. And for that, we will be looking at additional funding on a European level so that all member states have the same opportunity to invest in the transition that I was just describing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings this press conference to a close. I'd like to add my words of thanks to the Czech presidency for hosting us, and look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.